Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're really getting into something fundamental. Uncertainty, how we deal with it in business, in life.
Yeah, and we're using Mastering Uncertainty by Watkinson and Csaba Konkoly as our guide. It's packed with insights.
The mission here is to figure out how to not just cope, but maybe even, thrive when things are unpredictable. Moving past this idea that we can or even should control everything.
Exactly. The book's got endorsements from various leaders, and they all seem to highlight its value for, well, navigating that unpredictability and maybe finding opportunities in it.
So let's dive in. What really grabbed me right at the start was the origin story of the book itself. It sounds like one of the authors had this personal journey, right?
Yeah, apparently he was deep into systems thinking, but felt something was missing. Couldn't quite make it all fit the real world.
And then, kind of ironically, given the book's topic, a chance encounter changes everything.
Totally. A conversation with a Hungarian investor at a party, of all places. And it just clicked. This whole dimension of probabilistic thinking was the missing piece.
It's amazing how that happens. That story itself is kind of a perfect illustration of the book's point, isn't it?
It really is. It shows how these seemingly tiny random events, a train journey, who you happen to talk to, can send your life in a completely new, unexpected direction. Career, partner, even writing this book.
It underscores that this isn't just, bad luck or good luck occasionally hitting us. Unpredictability is sort of baked into the system.
Definitely. And it's not just those big life events either. They use this great analogy, the rice pile.
Oh, yeah. Explain that one.
So imagine you're adding grains of rice, one by one. It builds up, seems stable, then bam, one extra grain triggers this huge avalanche.
And you never know which grain will do it or how big the slide will be.
Exactly. Self-organized criticality, they call it.
Yeah.
Small, unidentifiable triggers causing these massive, unpredictable shifts. You see it in markets, social trends.
It makes sense. And you see a similar pattern with technology, right? The book talks about how tech evolves.
Technologies get more complex layer upon layer, trying to improve. But eventually they get kind of clunky, maybe.
Right. Diminishing returns. And then something new, often simpler, just comes along and disrupts the whole thing, like smartphones hitting the scene.
And here's the kicker. The book points out that the winner isn't always the objectively best tech.
Really? How so?
Sometimes it's just random chance, a lucky break, a key review. Maybe one company gets funding at just the right moment.
So being technically superior isn't a guarantee. Luck plays a bigger part than we maybe like to admit.
Which brings us to this idea that business, and a lot of life, is fundamentally a numbers game. It's probabilistic.
Okay, so if outcomes are uncertain, how do you improve your chances?
Well, the book boils it down to two main ways, really. You either increase your number of attempts, play the game more often, reach more people, or you improve your conversion rate. Make each attempt more likely to succeed. Optimize what you can influence.
It sounds a bit daunting, all this randomness.
It can seem that way, but here's the flip side the book emphasizes. Uncertainty is also where opportunity lives.
How do you mean?
Think about it. If everything was perfectly predictable, there'd be no room to innovate, no way to change your trajectory. Uncertainty means the future isn't set in stone. We can actually shape it.
That's a much more positive way to look at it. But if the world is so unpredictable, why are we often so bad at seeing it? Why do we act like we can predict everything?
Well, that's where our own minds get in the way. The book talks about these psychological biases, these sort of mental shortcuts that blind us to randomness.
Like our deep-seated need for control. We just want to believe we're steering the ship, finding logical causes for everything.
Exactly. We resist the idea of pure chance. And then there's hindsight bias.
Oh, the I knew it all along effect. After something happens, it seems so obvious, so predictable.
Right. And that seriously messes with our ability to judge how predictable things actually were beforehand. We think we're much better predictors than we are.
And we love a good story, don't we? We need to post-rationalize. Even if something was pure luck, we create a narrative to explain it.
We do. We weave a tale of cause and effect, completely missing the role of chance. The halo effect plays into this too.
How does that work again?
If someone or something is successful in one thing, we just assume they're brilliant at everything. We build this coherent but maybe false picture. Like a successful CEO must have amazing judgment on all topics.
Right, ignoring the possibility that maybe they got lucky initially.
And the availability heuristic, we overweight things that are recent or vivid or easy to recall. A recent market crash makes us think crashes are more common than they are, for example. we forget the long periods of stability.
So our own thinking patterns make it hard to grasp uncertainty.
Which leads nicely into the next part, exploring where this drive for control and predictability in business really came from. And a big shadow looming there is Frederick Winslow Taylor.
Taylorism, scientific management.
Exactly. Taylor really pushed this idea that business could be and should be an exact science, like physics or engineering.
He had that famous experiment, didn't he, with the pig iron loaders at Bethlehem Steel?
That's the one. He claimed to use scientific methods, time studies, prescribed movements, rest periods, to massively increase how much iron each worker could load. Like 4 times as much.
And that became his proof of concept, right? That management wasn't just guesswork, it could have exact laws.
Precisely. Now, the book raises some questions about whether his accounts were, let's say, completely objective or maybe a bit embellished for effect. But regardless of the exact details, his core message that management follows precise laws really struck a chord at the time. America was obsessed with science, efficiency, progress. Taylor gave business a way to seem scientific.
And this got picked up by universities, giving business studies that academic credibility.
It did. And the book suggests this maybe created a bit of a split, the practical doers versus the strategic thinkers, academics, consultants who claimed they had the formulas for success.
But the reality, as the book points out, is that there isn't a magic formula, is there? Success in one place doesn't just translate.
Not automatically, no. Think Ron Johnson, huge success with Apple stores, then, well, not so much at JCPenney. And startups. They almost always have to pivot, sometimes dramatically, from their initial plan.
So we use scientific methods in business testing ideas, gathering data.
Yes, we form hypotheses and test them, absolutely.
But that doesn't mean business itself becomes an exact science with guaranteed repeatable outcomes.
That's the crucial distinction the book makes. We often blur that line.
And this connects to the critique of traditional strategy, right? The idea of these big, top-down, perfectly formulated plans.
Exactly. The learning school of strategy pushes back hard against that. People like Mintzberg, even practical leaders like Jack Welch, argued those grand plans rarely work out as written.
Why not?
Well, they're often created far from the front lines, they don't adapt well, and the world changes too fast. The learning school says strategy emerges more incrementally through doing, through learning, connecting, thinking, and acting.
Okay, but if those big prescriptive strategies often fail, why are they still so popular? Why do companies keep paying huge fees for them?
Good question. The book offers a few reasons. One is, well, consultants and academics have biases too. They can look back at a success that just emerged and frame it as if it was their brilliant plan all along.
Like the Boston Consulting Group story with Honda motorcycles in the U.S.
That's a classic example they mention. BCG created this neat strategic narrative, but Honda themselves were like, no, it was much messier and more accidental than that.
Plus, we just like neat stories, that post-rationalization thing again.
Definitely. We want to believe it was all intended and controlled. And then there's simple organizational politics.
How so?
Status. It often comes from having a big budget, a big team. Commissioning a major strategy project from a top firm signals importance, even if a smaller iterative approach might actually be more effective.
So sticking to that old mechanistic view of business as a machine,
it actually holds us back. It stifles the creativity, the adaptability you need when things are fundamentally uncertain. You can't engineer your way through chaos perfectly.
Okay, so if that old model is flawed, how should we approach things? This leads us to part 3, about cultivating the right mindset.
Right. And the first big piece is rethinking our relationship with failure.
It's not something to be terrified of?
Not according to the book. It's unavoidable if you're learning, if you're trying new things in an uncertain world. Think of Edison and the light bulb.
All those failed experiments.
He didn't see them as failures.
Right.
He saw them as discovering thousands of ways not to make a light bulb. It's about giving permission to yourself, to your team, to learn from what doesn't work. A failed project isn't a failed person.
That ties into taking smart risks then, not just jumping blindly.
Exactly. The book talks about assessing the affordable loss. Instead of just dreaming about the huge upside, you ask, what's the realistic downside here? And can I actually afford to lose that if it goes wrong?
Like offering a free initial meeting to a potential client.
Perfect example. The cost is maybe a few hours of your time. Affordable. The potential upside, landing a big project, building a relationship, is much greater. It's a calculated risk.
Then there's the growth mindset. This seems huge.
Oh, absolutely. Believing your abilities aren't fixed, that you can develop them through effort, learning, practice. The opposite of a fixed mindset, where you think you're either good at something or you're not.
Satya Nadella at Microsoft really pushed this, didn't he?
He did, from a know-it-all culture to a
Wow.
learn-it-all culture.
Yeah.
And the book credits that shift with a lot of their recent success.
And a big part of that is being open to feedback, right? Being coachable.
Crucial. And decoupling your ego from your work. If someone criticizes your report, they're not attacking you personally. Actively seeking out constructive criticism, even the tough stuff, is how you get better. Better to hear it privately than fail publicly later.
Makes sense. We also need grit, perseverance.
Yeah, just that tenacity to keep going when things get tough. Churchill's never give in spirit.
And becoming more inner-directed. What's that about?
Finding your own intrinsic motivations. Understanding what truly drives you, what aligns with your identity, rather than just chasing external validation. It gives you a kind of internal compass.
We also need realistic expectations. Big things take time, usually involve ups and downs.
For sure. And routines and rituals can actually help anchor us amidst the uncertainty. Even seemingly quirky ones, they provide stability.
Spending time with the right people matters too, that social influence.
Hugely. You absorb the mindsets of the people you surround yourself with. So choose environments that foster the traits you want to develop.
And finally, the pursuit of mastery. That sounds like a long game.
It is. The book describes it in phases.
Yeah.
Apprenticeship, then a creative active phase, then mastery. It's about continuous improvement, deep focus. It naturally builds that growth mindset and self-direction.
Okay, so we've got the mindset piece. Part 4 shifts to human connection as another key tool, starting with our evolutionary roots.
Yeah, the idea is that because we evolved in groups where we'd likely encounter the same people again and again, we developed instincts for cooperation, for long-term relationships.
So altruism isn't just purely selfless.
From an evolutionary perspective, it can be seen as long-term cooperation. Helping others builds goodwill, increases the chance they'll help you later. And trust, obviously, is the bedrock of all of this. Without trust, collaboration breaks down.
And how do we build that trust? The book mentions costly signaling.
Right. It's about demonstrating good qualities, reliability, commitment, quality, through actions that actually cost you something. Talk is cheap.
Like a stag growing huge antlers, it's costly in energy, makes it harder to escape predators, but signals strength to rivals and mates.
Exactly. Or in business, think about a really generous warranty or return policy. It costs the company something, but it signals confidence in their product. Paying suppliers early is another example.
And the book suggests being a host, not a guest, in our interactions.
Yeah, I love that idea. Be generous, be helpful, pay attention, make people feel comfortable, connect people who might benefit from knowing each other. It's about creating value within your network.
There's that story about Amgen and the scientist Eugene Goldwasser.
Right. Just basic hospitality. Treating him well when others didn't apparently led to a breakthrough collaboration down the line. Unexpected rewards.
Introducing yourself well is also important for serendipity.
Definitely. Clearly stating what you do, what
Yeah.
you're interested in, maybe even passions outside work. You never know what connection might spark from that.
And paying it forward. Helping
Yeah.
without keeping score.
It comes back around, usually. Reciprocity is powerful. Paying freelancers quickly was the example given, builds huge goodwill.
And just basic courtesy. Politeness, saying thank you, seems obvious, but
Easily forgotten in the rush of business,
yeah.
but fundamental.
Protecting your reputation is critical too. It's so fragile.
Absolutely. The book suggests that simple test. What I want people to know about this. If the answer is no, probably don't do it.
Managing expectations is another one. Underpromise and overdeliver is maybe cliche, but better than the reverse.
For sure. Setting realistic expectations and then meeting them builds trust reliably.
And finally, just being open. Open to unexpected connections, opportunities. You can't plan serendipity, but you can be ready for it.
Exactly. Like the author's own story of how the book came about from a chance chat.
Okay, shifting gears again to part 5, selling and growth. Back to that numbers game idea.
Yeah, selling is always probabilistic.
Yeah.
You win some, you lose some. Chance plays a role.
Hmm.
But you can improve your odds.
How? First step seems to be knowing your customer.
Absolutely. Developing that target customer profile.
Mhm.
Who has the problems you are best equipped to solve? Focus your efforts there.
And interestingly, the book says top salespeople don't just agree with customers, they challenge them.
Right. They bring new insights, challenge assumptions, make the customer think differently about their own situation. That's real value.
Active listening is key too, asking good questions.
Crucial. You need to create space for the customer to talk. The FinRev framework, situation, problem, implications, need, payoff is a structured way to do that.
Understanding the implications seems really important, not just the problem, but what happens because of the problem.
Yes, and helping them see the desired future state. What does life look like after the problem is solved with your help? Focusing on that positive outcome is powerful.
Then structuring your pitch well, SEQA and the pyramid principle.
Yeah, SCQA, situation, complication, question, answer, helps frame the narrative logically. The pyramid principle is about starting with the main point and then supporting it with details, clear communication, and obviously practice your delivery.
Negotiation skills are vital too.
Definitely. Knowing your walkaway point, not being afraid of no, understanding anchoring bias, opening ambitiously and looking for trade-offs, the if you, then I approach to find win-win solutions.
The book also contrasts being market-oriented versus organization-oriented.
Big difference. Market-oriented means focusing on customers, competitors, the external world. Organization-oriented means focusing inward on internal processes, politics, convenience.
And success can actually lead to becoming too inward-looking, that victory disease.
It's a real danger. You get complacent, assume you know best, stop listening to the market.
When launching something new, the approach needs to be different, more entrepreneurial.
Yes. Less focus on precise ROI predictions, more on that affordable loss idea. Build real prototypes quickly, get them in front of potential customers, get feedback, iterate. Don't perfect it in isolation.
Timing over features, aiming for better, not just unique.
That's what expert entrepreneurs often do, according to the research cited. And focus on customer development, proving there's a market, before sinking huge sums into product development. Avoid the web van trap of scaling too soon.
So it's iterative. Get expert input, build a basic version, test it, refine it, repeat.
Exactly. Like the Amass Gin example they use.
And for growth overall, revenue usually matters more than cost cutting.
Generally, yes. Especially pricing small changes there can have a huge impact on profit. And growth comes mainly from getting new customers, especially light buyers, not just squeezing more from existing ones. That's the law of double jeopardy.
So you need mental availability be easy to think of and buyability be easy to purchase.
Right. Build distinctive brand assets so people recognize you. Lower barriers to buying operational, financial. Offer a range. Increase perceived value.
And balance exploring new things with exploiting what already works.
That's the exploration versus exploitation dilemma. You need both. Like Bezos talks about the importance of wandering, finding those points of maximum leverage for growth.
Okay, final section, part 6, leading and managing in uncertainty. Starts with a warning about just saying, let's change the culture.
Yeah, because culture is sticky, complex. You can't just change it by decree. It takes real, sustained effort and changing underlying systems and behaviors.
And beware of rigid goals and metric fixation.
Big time. Narrow goals can lead to cutting corners, unethical behavior, like at Wells Fargo or GM, or just missing the bigger picture. Think summit fever. In mountaineering, so focused on the goal, you ignore warning signs.
You need balance, context, and relying only on what's easily measured can be dangerous too. Goodhart's law, right?
When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. People start gaming the metric instead of focusing on the actual desired outcome. Affordable loss can be an alternative way to encourage bigger bets with controlled risk.
Cultivating a positive error culture is key here too.
Absolutely. Mistakes are learning opportunities. You need psychological safety, open communication, no blame culture. People need to feel respected and have permission to speak up, challenge ideas.
Diversity in teams helps with that, brings different perspective.
Definitely enhances problem solving and avoids groupthink.
And recognizing the tension between efficiency and effectiveness.
Yeah, some really important things like innovation, relationship building just aren't efficient in the short term. You need adaptability, especially early on. Efficiency can kill exploration, which leads to the idea of loon shots and franchises.
Explain those.
Loon shots are the crazy, radical ideas that are the potential breakthroughs. Franchises are the established, successful parts of the business that need efficient execution. They need different environments, different types of people, different incentives.
And the challenge is managing the relationship between them, getting ideas from the nursery to the mainstream without killing them or disrupting the core business too much.
Exactly. It requires careful balance and mutual respect. And the book suggests that changing organizational structure to support both might be easier than trying to fundamentally change the culture directly.
Wow. Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. We've covered a lot from mastering uncertainty.
We have. I think the core message is that uncertainty isn't just this negative thing to be endured. It's actually inherent. and it's where the potential for growth and creativity lies.
So thriving isn't about eliminating it, but shifting our mindset, thinking probabilistically, embracing learning, taking smart risks.
Building strong relationships based on trust and reciprocity, being adaptable in how we approach strategy and growth.
And leading in a way that fosters innovation and psychological safety, balancing exploration with exploitation.
Right. It's about pragmatism over rigid prediction.
So here's a final thought to leave you with. We talk a lot about luck, but maybe, as the book suggests, luck isn't just random chance hitting us. Maybe luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity.
I like that. So while we can't control the uncertainty itself, how prepared we are, how open we are to seeing and acting on the opportunities that uncertainty throws up, that's where our influence lies.
So true control isn't about fighting uncertainty. It's about learning to dance with it, learning to navigate it, make it work for you, always exploring those possibilities it creates.
Well said. It's about making uncertainty your ally, not your enemy.